So I was getting ready to go down to the garden, and sure enough, I have a problem. Squishy, squishy, squishy kind of problem. Well, I thought that maybe it was just low on air. I filled this up yesterday, but sure enough, squishy, squishy, squishy. So I got a flat tire. We're gonna have to take care of that. Tires on these kind of carts are relatively simple. Just have to pull the pin there, don't lose your washer, lift it up, slide it right off. Don't forget to put the washer back on. So we're going to take this up and fix it. So the question is, how did this get a flat? Well, I just walked down to my garden and back, and I want to show you something. Let's take a look at this. This is the bottom of my shoe, and sure enough, this little guy right here, if I can pull him out. Okay, this little guy right here, some people call it a goat's head, puncher weed, Satan's blossom, but they are, anyone who is weeded knows that these things are just absolutely the worst. And these things can lay dormant for 10 years and then just blossom all of a sudden. If anyone has kids or grandkids and they ride their bikes through a field, well, their tires can just get punctured with these puncher weeds. And that's probably what did the tire in. But we're going to check out the tire and find out what the problem is. Well, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to examine the outside tread of this tire and see if we can see any puncture weeds, nails, or anything that might have gone through the tread into the inner tube. And I can't seem to see anything here. So we're going to have to take this apart. So I'm going to take off the valve cap. And I have this little tool right here. This is a 4-in-1 tool that has a valve stem remover on this end. And it has a little thread chaser on this end that can go through and chase the threads in case these threads are buggered up. Has a thread chaser on the inside that you can go through and clean up the inside threads. So you're going to have some way of removing that the valve core here. So you're going to need some kind of tools if you're ever going to do these by yourself, just to bring this on out. And if there was pressure in this, you'd want to be careful so that when you take this out, your valve core doesn't go shooting off somewhere. So you're just going to put that right down there. Of course, there's two sides to a tire, inside, outside. We're going to take off the outside because it's going to be easier to service the valve stem that way. And the easiest thing you have, you don't have a special spoon for it, is sometimes a wrench with a smooth end right here. You can get in to break the bead without harming the inner tube. You got to be careful not to pinch the inner tube inside as you're taking this off. So you just put that back underneath there. Kind of squeeze it down this side and force that side towards the opposite side. And I can fill the inner tube down inside there. And then we're just going to pull this a little bit at a time towards me, breaking that bead. Okay, so this is known as the bead, and so once we do that, we're going to kind of reach up underneath. We're going to push this inner tube stand back inside, then reach up underneath and grab the inner tube and pull it out. Like so. Now I did call a tire shop to find out how much it would cost to foam fill the tire, and they wanted $60. Well, the tire itself is only probably worth $30. The idea of putting foam inside of tires, basically you eliminate the inner tube, and what they do, they actually put an expandable foam inside, and the foam expands, and basically you never have to worry about punctures or flat tires again. Put the tire down on the ground. Now what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to check for the hole. We're going to have to put our valve core back inside. The next step, we have to inflate the tire. And if you don't have a compressor, well, I guess you could probably use a bicycle pump, but it's going to be a little bit harder for you. So we're not going to blow this up too big, but enough to find the leak. Just like that. Now I'm just going to lightly go with my hand around here just to see if I can feel any air. I can feel some air right. I can feel some air right here. So I got a little hole there. So I'm going to go get my soapy water. You can either use soapy water, or you could maybe fill your sink full. Maybe fill your sink full of water and do it. But my wife would not appreciate the sink being filled up with water for me to dip my inner tube into. Just right in here. This probably doesn't have enough soap in it. That's right there. I can feel the air coming out against my thumb. So you can see it's spurting right above my thumb there. So I'm just going to kind of remember where that is. Clean this up a bit. Remember where that is and clean this up a bit. And you really can't see it on camera, but you can see just the smallest little teeny hole. I'm going to get my marker and we're going to put an X. We're going to put an X right where that hole is. And just to verify that, and this is a permanent marker, you can kind of see with the soapy water where that hole is. Okay, but there's always a possibility there's more than one hole. So we're going to go around and around Another thing you can do while you're at it is you never know if this thing, the valve stem could be leaking. So you always want to put some soapy water in there and rule that out. So we verified this with the kitchen sink method, and we only have one leak in this. And that's our leak right there. And like I said, it's great to use permanent markers, because that way when you're cleaning it, it won't come off. The next thing you want to do, you want to abrade the surface. Now, usually when you buy a tire repair kit, sometimes the lid will have an abrasive surface. Sometimes they use little tools, you know, all sorts of different things they'll give you. Sometimes you can just use emery cloth or sandpaper. So you just want to rough up the surface. You basically just want to remove any of the oils or whatever might be there, just to make sure that your patch has something to stick to. But I'm not going to do it so much I'm going to lose my mark, because then I won't know where to go. Okay, so you can kind of see that's a little bit cleaned up right there. The next step is rubber cement, and I cannot tell you how many times I've had to buy rubber cement, because if you don't have these lids on just absolutely tight, airtight, it seems like your rubber cement will always dry out. And you don't need a whole lot of this stuff, but you can see where the excess, you just want to put a nice thin coat of rubber cement. And it's a good idea to put it equally, so in the center of your rubber cement you know where to put your patch. And we're going to let that air dry. You don't want to put your patch on while your rubber cement is wet. Okay, the rubber cement is all nice and dry. Now in my kit I have, they usually give you all sorts of patches. Small ones, little ones, you can just rip off a piece and have at it. This clear piece, this is for the outside, and your instructions will usually tell you which side is the outside, which side goes against the tire. But this one goes against the outside. This side right here will go against the tire. So you have to just peel this backing up, and this back side is going to be really smooth. So you don't want to touch it. You want to just keep your fingers away from it. You can still see the X inside there, so we're just going to lay that right down and just smooth it down with our fingers. Just like so. Okay, and while that's just sitting there, what we need to do is to come back here and take out our valve core. And we want to get all the air out of this so we can put this back inside the tire. Now, before we put the inner tube back inside, one of the things we want to do is, here's the hole for the tire, and this is where the valve stem came up through it. And right over here is where my hole was. So if you think right here, and maybe you can even put a mark here, we'll put a little bit of an X there. Something came through this area right here and punctured my tire. So you want to put your hand up inside and feel around for anything sharp. You want to make sure that whatever was in there that made the hole is no longer there. If this is a bigger tire, perhaps you might feel the tip of a nail or tip of a screw or a thorn. So rub your hand all the way around the tire. What's this? Oh, this is a piece of rubber. But rub your hand all throughout this tire and look for anything sharp up underneath. Because if you don't, you could end up putting your tire back together, and as soon as you inflate it, you're going to have another hole on your hand. So everything is nice and smooth inside. Now we can put the tire back together again. This is probably the most difficult part, and that's trying to get this back inside the same way it came out. So you just have to lift up one side of the tire, just kind of start shoving this back in, trying not to crisscross the inner tube so the inner tube isn't twisted inside to turn out to have like a big hernia. You want to get the inner tube all the way inside on the other side of that bead on the rim. You can see where my valve stem is sticking out here, so we're going to have to stick that all the way inside and bring it up through that hole like so. Now if you have one of these little tools, the nice thing about these tools, you can go ahead and thread this tool back on the valve stem, and as you're playing around with it, this won't get pulled through to where you lose it again. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, we need to push the tire's bead back up against the rim. So you want to give yourself as much room on here. You want to push this as far over as you can, and then just go ahead and start here and just work your thumbs all the way around this bead, pushing it down. Now, you got to make sure you have this side pushed down as far as possible, or else you're going to get way too tight around here. Push that down as far as possible and continue to work your way all the way around. Just like so. Okay, go ahead and take our tool off. Get our valve core and put that back down inside. Tighten that up, just make it nice and snug. And get our compressed air. Now, this will have a tendency to want to go pop back inside. So it's a good thing to do is maybe put your thumb against this, create some tension. This is where two hands might be better than one. Because with this, I have to use one hand to hold this into place. Now you have to use another hand to do the air. However, I do have this set up right here where I don't have to do that. It doesn't have a valve. And this is going to be a lot easier to fill it up this way first. Okay, now according to this, okay, so it says maximum load 430 pounds at 30 psi. So 30 psi is the amount of air we want to put in here. So you can see that little end pop out right now. It's around, this, if you can bring close, about 22. It's filling it up. Now right there it's 30. Now if you don't have one of these setups, you can just use a regular tire gauge that you probably have in your glove box. And that's also 30 psi. So this is all done. Put our cap back on. And that is a tire repair for a tire with a tube in it. Now, while I'm out here, I guess it might be worth showing you how to patch a tubeless tire. Now here's a typical tire. This actually comes off a truck, and as you can see, there's a nail or something that's inside here. It never fails to amaze me of some of the things that ends up in a tire. We're going to pull this out, but what we want to do before we do, we want to mark it the best as we can. This is a piece of soapstone that I use for welding. Sidewalk chalk or just about anything would work. So we want to mark it so once it comes out we know where the hole is. It's like pulling teeth. Oh, okay, so that was inside the tire. Now these are tubeless tires, so they don't have a tube inside. Back in the day when we were a tire buster, we'd just take this apart and then we'd slap a patch just like we did on that other repair on the inside of here. But in the days that we have now, it's rare for them to pull the tire all apart, but what they'll end up doing is putting a plug into it. Now, a tire plug kit is something would be nice to have in your emergency kit for your car, because you never know when you might get a flat tire somewhere on the roadside. Now, a tire repair kit will have a set of plugs. Sometimes these can be, let me just show you here. Sometimes these can just be like a rubber plug, or these plugs are kind of it's a really sticky material that almost looks like it has like twine inside. I'm sure it's not twine, but it's almost like a sticky material packed in and around a small diameter rope. And then also you'll have an abrasive tool that you put inside the hole to clean it all up. And then you have this tool that has like a little eyelet in it. And what this does, you take your plug and you put it inside this eyelet. Like so, and you go about halfway in, and then this goes inside the hole, and then you pop it back out and it leaves the plug inside the tire. And then of course, rubber cement. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to abrade this hole right here. And one of the things I've always do that makes it a lot easier, and it almost acts as a lubricant, is we're going to get some rubber cement and we're going to coat the abrasive tool with some rubber cement, because that will help it go in and out a lot easier. You got to remember, these tires have steel bands inside, and so sometimes it's really hard to get this in around those steel bands. Okay, so that's cleaned up. Not an easy thing to do, and imagine being on the side of a freeway with traffic whizzing by your head, trying to do that in the middle of the night. Okay, so now we have our tool here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to coat this with rubber cement. Be nice and liberal. And we're also going to put some on the hole here. And we need to find the hole. Now, you got to be careful here, because you don't want to go all the way down here to the hilt, because you'll lose your entire plug down inside. So we only want to go about halfway. And I'm going to put my fingers here to keep me from going all the way in. So I'm going to see, we're just going to kind of push this in, but not all the way in. Okay, you can see that I have about, 1/2 inch, 3/4 sticking out here. So that's about as far as I want to go. And then with a good sharp pull, I'm going to pull this out, just like that. So now I have this plug sticking inside the hole, and then we're ready to go. Now, one thing about this, 2 issues about this kind of tire repair. One, I've just added a little bit of weight to this tire. Now, on old farm trucks and stuff, it probably isn't a problem, but there always is that possibility that this amount of weight could cause a little bit of a vibration problem. If I had a flat like this on a high performance tire, after I got done and got rescued or got back to the city or whatever, I'd probably go by a tire shop and have them check this hole, have them check the repair, and maybe even rebalance the tire, just in case the weight of this repair could throw the tire balance off. Now, some people will go ahead and they'll clip these off. I generally won't. I'll just leave it just how it is. Now, back in the good old days, of course, imagine yourself, you're on the side of the road and your tire is flat. Well, the issue now is, how are you going to get a flat tire fixed? Or how are you going to pump up a flat tire? Well, back in the good old days, and they still sell it, is a product called Fix-A-Flat. And what that is, it's an aerosol can that you can attach to your tire, and you can inflate the tire with Fix-A-Flat. And not only will it put air back into your tire, but it'll also put a sealing agent inside your tire. So if for some reason there might have been a pinhole leak or a little gap right here where the air would be able to get out, it would take care of that. But the caution I need to give you today is many tires now have pressure sensors on their valve stems. It's a little device that's right inside the valve stem, inside the rim of the tire, that sends a signal out to the car that tells you how many PSI you have in your tire. If you use Fix-A-Flat with those sensors, you can clog up the sensors and destroy them, and then you're going to be out $100 to $200 to replace the sensor. So that's the problem we have in today's world, is you got to be very careful using Fix-A-Flat on a car that has a tire pressure sensor inside the rim. So check your owner's manual, check the label Fix-A-Flat or whatever brand of Fix-A-Flat you may use to make sure it's not going to damage your transmitter for your tire pressure gauge. There's another product on the market that might be useful in a case with my little trailer tire and also with bicycles of your kids, and that is, it's called Slime. Great name. Now, this is similar to Fix-A-Flat, but Slime does not have the propellant inside to inflate your tire. This is just a sealer. It's kind of a polymer sealer that has some, it's like peppermint chocolate chip ice cream. It has lots of little bits of rubber pieces to help plug a tire up from the inside out. And if you take a look on this, it says tire sensor safe. So if you're going to use a product like Fix-A-Flat, make sure it won't destroy your tire sensors. But this is something relatively easy. You take out your valve stem, and it gives you a little valve stem tool right here. You'd screw this on, and you would inject this liquid, and it has a little bit of a guide here On small tires, it says to put 8 ounces in here. So you put this on here, squeeze it in, take it out, put your valve stem back in, fill it full of air, and off you go. So that's something I'll probably end up doing with my trailer if I keep on getting puncture weeds in the tires causing flats. But for your kids' bikes, great thing to have. And we're just going to put this back on. And we're right as rain.